Hi everyone, it's Shea. Welcome to or back to my channel. If you are new here, I currently live in Bologna, Italy to study Italian, and I've been studying Italian for quite a few years now, and I've been living in Bologna for about 7 or 8 months. Today, I wanted to react to my most popular video. If you haven't seen it before, you could go watch it before this. I'm sure most of you have already seen it by now and might be the reason why you're actually subscribed to this channel. It was my video where I challenged myself to see how much Italian I could learn in 1 month. It was inspired by Nathaniel Drew's video of learning Italian in 2 weeks. I really like him as a creator. I think he's really great. Of course, I got a lot of hate on this video because you can't learn a language in 1 month. I know that. I put a disclaimer in the description of the video. I talked about it in the video how it's impossible to learn an entire language in 1 month, but I really wanted to see how well I could do. And now, after obviously continuing to study Italian for many years and now actually living in Italy, going to school to learn Italian every single day, I wanted to reflect back on this video because I haven't watched it like in years. I'm curious to see if any of the tips that I put in there would still apply, if there's anything I would change. Also, I remember a part at the end where I talked a little bit in Italian, and I'm very curious to hear myself speak in Italian and compare it to where I'm at now. So anyways, I think this should be fun. I hope you enjoy this video. I know I will. It might be very cringe. So let's go ahead and take a look. It is up to 1.5 million views. I did not know that. I did not know that we are almost... Wow, okay. Okay, 3 years ago. Let's take a look.
Today we are doing a video that is slightly different than what I normally do, but this video is going to be about how I learned Italian in 1 month. Disclaimer, I didn't learn the entire language. I am not entirely fluent in Italian, but it is just about me using some tips and tricks.
Okay. This is when people get mad at me. I'm like, obviously you didn't watch this disclaimer because I said it is impossible, because it is impossible to fully learn a language in a month. I get that. And people got so mad at me, and I get it. I get it. The title is like misleading. I get it. But I didn't say, oh, I learned how to speak fluent Italian. People will always hate. Just saying.
I will share.
Also, this is so cringe. I hate watching myself. Why am I so serious?
Here it is. Roll the tape. And Nathaniel Drew actually mentioned this in his video. First thing I did was look at a list of the most common 1,000 words in Italian. Started making flashcards. Now what I recommend is don't try to make 1,000 flashcards all at once because that will be super overwhelming. What I did is I broke it up. I did about 100 a day, and that may sound really daunting, but there are a lot of cognates in Italian. So
Okay, let's talk about the flashcards, because obviously this is a challenge, so you're purposefully trying to do a lot more than you normally would. Obviously, if you have the time and you're like learning Italian over a certain amount of time, you don't need to be cramming 100 new words into your head every day. I think there's definitely some truth to what I said when I mentioned about not focusing on random words that you might not be using right away. Like, the idea of studying top words obviously is the most important, because, you know, if you're looking at the most important verbs, for example, the verbs like fare, essere, andare, verbs like this that you use in your language all the time, focusing on those important common words will be useful because they obviously will be the ones that are popping up most in your day-to-day conversation, and not something like some random kitchen utensil. So I understand what I'm saying there. I think obviously writing out all these flashcards, I used to be such a flashcard person and now I'm definitely not. Some people did mention like it'd be better to use Quizlet so you're not wasting all this paper and flashcards. Totally agree. Also on Quizlet, a lot of people have already made these decks so that way you don't have to go through making them. Also with any vocabulary, like I mentioned here, reviewing them in short little spurts throughout the day, very important, instead of doing it all at once or making the flashcards and then never coming back to them. I don't think it's necessary to do 100 in a day. For me, I was obviously very motivated, so I think I was able to do it. I had a lot of time. This was like, I had graduated from school. I didn't have a job, so you know.
Tip number 2 is finding commonly used verbs and learning how to conjugate them. I first focused on the present tense just so you can talk about what's happening now. Present tense is probably the easiest for now. The most common verbs are pretty easy to find. Words like to be, to have, to go, things like that. And then you can just learn how to conjugate them.
And unfortunately, as we know, most of the commonly used verbs are all irregular.
Fortunately, a lot of the most commonly used ones are irregular verbs, meaning that they won't follow the exact pattern of conjugation.
Got it, girl.
But that's just one of those things that you also have to commit to memory. So in addition to studying your flashcards every day, I would recommend learning those verbs and then conjugating them every day. Tip number 3, what I did is I actually kept a journal where I wrote about what I did that day, some of my thoughts, or you could even write like short stories.
I remember when people, I mean, obviously this is right when I started, but this right here, people would be like, it's not o andato, it's sono andata. And I was like, okay. Like, it's so funny now. I'll still get this exact comment to this day, 3 years later now, when like I look at this too and I'm like, oh, like, you know, big mistake. But it's so funny because people will comment 3 years later and be like, oh, just so you know, it's sono andata and not o andato. I mean, it's been 3 years, I think now I know, but thank you. Anyways, this actually, though, this is a good idea. This is a very good idea. I honestly forgot that I did this, but now, like, looking at this now, okay, yes, I see mistakes, but like, this is good. Try to start writing as soon as you can because it's useful. I'm actually surprised I was able to write this. Okay.
So I love watching videos on YouTube. At first, you have no idea what's happening because it seems like they talk so fast, but it really helps to hear the way the language is supposed to sound. And it also helps because you're hearing what people would normally talk about. You pick up little phrases, you know, that you hear a lot in the videos and that they repeat. And it's also important to watch TV shows. One of my favorite Italian shows on Netflix is called Baby. It's a pretty dark show, just so you know, so you're prepared, but I really love it. It's shot in Rome and I was obsessed with it. It's one of the reasons actually I wanted to start learning Italian because I loved the sound of the language and I thought the show was so cool. I first watched it with English subtitles just because that was when I didn't know any Italian, and now I'm going back and watching it with Italian subtitles just to match what I hear to what the actual words are, and that's really important. Watching TV shows or movies with the Italian subtitles, because if you watch with the English subtitles, that's not going to be beneficial because you're just going to be reading and not connecting the Italian words.
Yeah, let's talk about TV shows. If you need more recommendations of TV shows and YouTubers in Italian, I have a video. I will put it up somewhere. And I never know what side of the screen is going to be on. Yes, watching TV shows and YouTubers, very, very helpful. As I mentioned here, I started off with English subtitles because it's practically impossible when you're first starting off to just know everything that's happening in a show in Italian. So don't be ashamed if you have to use your native language subtitles. I mean, I think I used English subtitles for a while because it takes a while to be able to understand everything that's happening. It's definitely beneficial to go back and if you have already watched a show, you then go back and use the Italian subtitles because at least you have an idea of what's going on. Also, something that I've liked doing is I'll watch shows in English like Love is Blind or different reality shows, Selling Sunset or something, but I don't know if it's just an option here because I'm in Italy or if it is back in the US as well. I will still turn on Italian subtitles, but listening to it in English. And maybe that sounds strange, but I'm kind of curious to see how they translate it into Italian. And I don't know, I think it's kind of helped sometimes. And I'm not exactly quite sure why, but sometimes I'll be able to learn some phrases or like informal things because reality TV, obviously they're speaking just informally with each other. But it's interesting to see how it's translated to Italian, and I don't know, it's like when I feel like watching something in English, at least I still get a little bit of Italian. I don't know if it's actually beneficial, but it's something I've been doing, and for me it seems beneficial. Also because sometimes I kind of try to guess, okay, what is this sentence going to be in Italian? And then I'll look down at the subtitles. It's like a little quiz while I'm watching something. So you could do that as well. And I still always use Italian subtitles with whatever Italian show that I'm watching, because it's pretty impossible for me to understand without subtitles, especially because a lot of the shows that I watch will, you know, maybe they have like a really thick Roman accent. For example, I watched a show also where they were in Naples, so there was some dialect. It's impossible if you don't know it. Subtitles, use them.
Tip number 6 is listening to music. Again, this is another way to expose your ear to the sounds of Italian. If you memorize song lyrics, that can also help with pronunciation and knowing what certain words mean. I like to look up the lyrics online and kind of read along with them as I listen to the song. I will link down some of my favorite Italian songs below. A lot of them come from the soundtrack of that Netflix show Baby that I was just talking about, and there's one in particular called Da Sola that I love, and it's like just such a bop. So
I will link my Spotify playlist down below. It's like Italian bops. I think it's pretty good.
Tip number 7, this is really great. Once you kind of establish a little bit of an understanding, you should download the app called Hello Talk.
Okay, no. A lot of people have talked to me about this, and I have discovered this myself as well. Hello Talk, there can be a lot of creepy people on there, which is why I prefer now Tandem, because on Tandem you are able to select if you only want to talk to other women. Because I definitely ran into a lot of people on Hello Talk who treated it almost like a dating app. Very strange. People get weirdly flirty. It's weird. But Tandem was great because I was able to talk with just girls, and we were just talking people from Italy, you know, and so we were talking about when I was living in LA, like a lot of people were really interested in what it was like to live in LA. So yes, sometimes it can be very great, but I would say I recommend Tandem over Hello Talk. Just saying, because a lot of people left comments mentioning this, and I would definitely agree.
Tip number 8, I think it is important to get a workbook so you can actually be practicing writing and using a structured way to learn the language. Some books aren't fantastic. I use this just to supplement what I've been learning. Again, it's good to supplement when I need to do like my grammar studies. Tip number 9.
I still don't know how I feel about them. No, I'm okay. I do agree with this tip of focusing on things that are more exercise based. You know, if you could find a workbook that like obviously has instructions and grammar explanations, but really gets you to actually do a lot of exercises, because you're only really learning when you're actually putting what you just learned into practice. That workbook was good. I would say there still were a lot of things that kind of made it feel like, you know, in the classroom I mentioned earlier, there was a lot of like unnecessary things, like phrases that you would learn that I'm like, I don't know if this is really important right now. But I would say yes, if you are gonna get a workbook, just get one, maybe two. Don't get a ton of workbooks because chances are you probably won't even use them. I bought a workbook here to supplement and I have not used it that much. It's literally sitting over there. But you know, if you are the type of person who likes to work through something and see your progress and it makes you feel like you've accomplished something because you get to see how much you've already gone through, get a workbook. Totally fine. I'm not totally against workbooks, but I feel like when it comes to learning a language, I think there gets to a certain point when just speaking with people is like honestly the best way that you can learn and get better instead of just doing repetition of different exercises. So that's how I feel about workbooks. Get one, don't get one. Not super necessary. Obviously you need to learn the grammar somehow. So I would say, okay, probably in the beginning, probably it's more important than later on.
What I have been doing towards these last few days is reading children's stories in Italian. You can hear the story read aloud, and then I would recommend mimicking how it sounds. This is super good for pronunciation because for me, learning a language, I want to be able to pronounce it correctly. I probably won't be 100% accurate. I want to try to get as good as possible.
Yeah, reading, super important. Children's stories, super great. Definitely to start off. And I still recommend that website. I think it's really good. And it was a really good thing to practice, as I mentioned, reading aloud. And they also do have audio. Obviously, it's a little bit like dramatic because it's a children's story. So they're going to read it like super, like you would read to a kid. You might not necessarily actually speak like that to normal human beings. That was a great resource. And then there's also a bunch of just like free PDFs online for other short stories. They don't necessarily need to be children's stories. Eventually they could just be shorter stories. And then now I'm at the point where I'm reading full books in Italian. So reading is always a great way to learn. Still 10 out of 10, recommend it. But yeah, don't try to dive into a book right when you're first learning a new language, start with children's stories or short stories. Also, just start speaking. I know for me, speaking is my weakest part. Now that I've watched all these videos and vlogs, I can actually watch them and understand most of what's happening, which is super exciting. I think that's a lie. I don't think I think it depends on which vlog I was watching, because it still took me a while to be able to understand. I mean, you can kind of get the overall gist, but even now sometimes there might be a topic that someone's talking about and I just don't have the vocabulary for it. Girl. But then if I were to go speak about something, I just totally blank. Sometimes what I do is I'll like... That still happens. My day when I'm in the shower, you know, just like try to talk, I talk in the shower all the time. I have conversations in the shower all the time. I pretend that I'm practicing for like going on a date. I'm practicing talking to my friends. I'm telling a story, something crazy that happened to me. I'm in the shower, I'm having a whole monologue. I'm having a whole discussion telling you about this crazy thing that happened to me a few years ago. Talking in the shower, while I'm cleaning the house, I have conversations by myself. I pretend someone's interviewing me and I'm like doing this interview in Italian. When I talk to myself, my Italian's great, I think, honestly, because I'm not scared about like making mistakes. If I do, I kind of like figure it out and repeat it. And then when I meet people in person, I'm like, oh, ciao. But when I'm home alone, I'm fluent. Anyways, it's a good tip. You get to hear me speak Italian. Hopefully it's good.
God, I'm
Don't
excited.
come at me. I think don't come at me. I'm just gonna talk a little bit about myself. I will put English subtitles down below. Ciao, mi chiamo Shea. Ho 22 anni e sono di People came at me so hard for the way that I pronounced anni perché? And my brain is like, oh, we're speaking Italian. Ooh, and I hear it now too, but I had no idea, and people always came at me. They're like, the double N is so important. Obviously now I know, because I was like, why are people commenting like buttholes on my... I was like, what does that mean? And then I was like, oh, I said that I have 22. And now I hear it. Now I really hear it. And every time I say that word in Italian, whenever I'm speaking with someone, I really draw out the double N's, because I don't want to make that mistake ever again. It's also really funny hearing my tone of voice. Anyways, let's continue, but... Okay. Scottsdale, Arizona. Ho 2 sorelle che vivono in Los Angeles e New York. Oh, it's cute, it's cute. Piace leggere, scrivere e fare video. No, I'm so mean, I'm so mean. E fare video per YouTube. Ho vissuto a Roma l'anno scorso e voglio ritornare un giorno. Presto vado a Los Angeles per trovare un lavoro. Grazie per aver guardato questo video e a presto. E basta. That was kind of short. No, it was good, it was good. It was cute. Okay, I definitely think that my accent has changed. In a good way, I would say, I hope. But it's good, it's good. Anyways, that was quite the experience. No, I actually had a lot of fun watching that, and it was very interesting to see the part where I spoke Italian very briefly. I didn't realize how short that was. But it is interesting because I feel like I've noticed a difference. And actually, I recently made a vlog in Italian. Check it out. Maybe you'll be able to notice the same thing about my accent. I hope that it's gotten better. It was fun. I think there was a lot of truth to what I said. I actually think it's still a good, some good tips in there. Obviously though, that is specifically for a challenge that I was trying to do, so you don't have to cram so much of a language into your head if you're planning on studying it for a long time, which you should be, because language learning is a lifelong thing. And as I've noticed, after living here in Italy for about 8 months now, there's a lot more to a language than you might initially think. I thought at this point I would be like pretty much fluent. That's not the case. Okay, I can hold conversations, but especially with native speakers, I get so nervous. With my friends at school, I can speak really well, but then with native speakers, it's like I'm just so nervous that I sometimes just won't say anything because I don't like making mistakes or embarrassing myself. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I thought it was very fun to look back on the video that I made. Let me know what other videos you would like to see. If you haven't subscribed already, subscribe to see videos about my life here now that I'm living in Italy, also language learning videos and just other fun stuff. See you all very soon. Bye.